when we look at different ways of planting fruit trees, this is my friends Chris and Michelle in South Australia, the Langadoo orchard. And they are growing fruit in a big wheat growing region. So they have access to all sorts of straw. And because they want to grow dwarf trees, they want a little less plant competition, so they mulch really heavily in the row itself. Well, they've been fighting apple scab, they call it black spot, in a big way for the longest time. And I just suggested to them they needed to get more woody material in there because they weren't getting the diversity of species. You know, that haphazard notion, taking your mind's eye to the forest edge. And that has made a shift for them in terms of getting a better handle on disease. Again, it's nutritional biological deficiencies. We have our ideas up top. If you want to grow smaller trees, the garden is a great place to do it because right to the side of the tree row, and the tree row can be ramial chipped wood, and there can be some taprooted herbs in between the trees. Right beside the tree row is a place that you cultivate to grow those peas, to grow that garlic, to grow potatoes. You hill the potatoes. So you're keeping it open by virtue of the fact that you're gardening, and you're overcoming the fact that dwarf tree systems do best economically with the herbicide strip because they just don't have the capacity to reach as far, and that's why they're stunted. They don't have that vigor. And this is a way to go about it more biologically, and it just lends itself to that practice. But it's also a good thing in your garden because anytime you have a perennial planting, a place where you don't disturb the soil, it becomes a mycorrhizal refuge come spring for fungi to springboard out into the other crops that you're now introducing. But I explore a lot of those garden concepts in the new book, but this is why if I was growing dwarf trees, actually this was my garden. These were M9 and they were susceptible varieties. This was 20 years ago, and I hadn't quite developed my understanding of fire blight. These trees all got lost to fire blight, which is extreme 20 years ago in the north. We're going to, again, be examining that fire blight question. This is my friend Harry Hoke in Minnesota. So this is a super high density orchard. These trees are planted approximately 2 feet apart. The idea here is to grow a fruiting wall. So to do it organically, that tree strip is a very challenging place. So he's chosen to deliberately grow different olfactory herbs with a strong aromatic scent because that confuses pests. Also plants that have a deep taproot, and we're going to talk about that dynamic. But the sides, the part that he can access with equipment, he will cultivate and plant cover crops that winter kill. This is called the Swiss sandwich method. So again, there's many different ways and ideas of how you integrate these things. But the point is you want to create this fungal duff going on. I like bigger trees that don't need a stake, that don't need a trellis. And my plantings are more wild. But in this picture, I dumped maybe even 2 bucket loads of ramial chipped wood in the front to give a young tree more space to develop a wood structure. I'm not going to be as concerned about mulching as strongly in the future. But I also haven't totally decimated the ecosystem where I put it. And that's because I'm preserving not just plant diversity, but also indigenous mycorrhizal diversity in this orchard. And we'll look a little deeper at that. So I can talk about cover cropping. In your handout, I think I presented a kind of a glory plan for cover cropping from a fungal perspective. Another way to go about this, preparing tree hole sites, is through sheet mulch. And this works really well. And it's all about putting down some kind of compost, maybe some rock dust, a layer of cardboard or 2, covering that with ramial chipped wood on the top, and giving it a year to break down. So you have a hole where a tree can readily be put in, but you're going to smother things like quackgrass and other things right around the immediate root zone. So there's many ways to go about it, but ultimately the goal is to get to a place of what I might call cruise control. And we're going to learn about that plant that's growing around this tree. It's comfort. But the choice of plants will help keep the ground a little bit more open, even under bigger trees. Once a tree gets a larger canopy and it's starting to give you fruit, it's in its bearing years, there's more shade in this zone. And the point here is that in time, unless you chose the dwarf tree and constantly have to kind of fight to keep that more open, in time, those freestanding trees kind of become a community of plants that are working without you getting that involved. And that's kind of nice, especially knowing that we just seem to keep getting older and older, so it should eventually get a little bit easier. That's helpful.